Alright, this is a little tutorial on how to use Flowlab to make a game of your choosing. Now, the game that I will be making, I've actually made a demo of it, and it's called the Raindrop game, and it's supposed to have an eye there. Let me actually add that in right now. Okay, go back to the play. Yes, this is the game. It's a game where you have a little bucket and you fill your bucket with water from the rain. And once it's fully filled, you can water the flower that's over here. And it will slowly rise and become an actual flower the more you add water to it. Now, let's start from the bare bones, from the actual pitch idea. Now the gameplay. The player has to water a plant using rainwater. They run around collecting raindrops that fall randomly from clouds and pour them onto the flower to grow it. I guess I could get a little more specific. They collect these raindrops into a bucket that gets poured on the flower, but you get the idea. Now, I'm going to pretty much work on this game in steps. I'm going to create a list of steps, and I'm going to follow these steps for the duration of this little tutorial here. So step number 1, create the generic level design, I guess. I'm not going to get too fancy with it. We're going to create a pretty simple one. So in this case, we're going to want to go into the editor, and then we are going to want to click on an empty space and hit create. Now, if you just hit OK, it will add a basic sprite that was shown in this area here. But what we're going to do is we're going to edit this sprite and we're going to add a block of our choosing. So these are some assets that I may have created. So we're going to actually go into the Flowlab sprites here, and we're just going to go to blocks. And we're just going to, we're going to add some ground here. So, let's get some basic material, hit OK. Now we have this ground. We might as well name it ground 1. And I say ground 1 because there might be other blocks we want to put on the ground too, just to make it look nice. But for now, we're probably just going to stick to this one. And we're going to clone this so that we have a generic looking scene here just with the ground. And we might as well make a little backdrop too, make the look a little more colorful, I guess. So we're going to add a shade of magenta. And we'll make it a little lighter too. There we go. Okay, there we go. And if you hit play, nothing really is going on here, but this is the level that we've made so far. Now, let's see. The next step here is, well, we have the basic level design. So next thing we want to do is, okay, let's create a player. So make a movable player. We don't just want to have the player just standing there. We also want to be able to move the character as well. So we're going to hit create here, edit sprite once again, go to browse, and we're probably going to use some of the assets that they actually have here. So let's go to characters, and you know what? Let's just let's use this one. Let's get a little creative here. We're going to use this guy, and we'll hit OK. And now if I hit OK here, I'll just call it character. And now if I hit OK and then play, right, nothing happens. Right? There's no inputs. I hit my WASD, nothing actually occurs. So let's add functionality here, make him movable. So number 1, we're going to want to add physics. We don't want him to just be solid, we also want him to be movable, which means that he will be affected by gravity as such. And the current collision shape is a circle. We could totally do a polygon, doesn't matter, but we'll do polygon for now. All right, and we'll hit OK, and then click back into him. And, actually, we can just play just as test, and you'll see he does fall now, which is nice, what we want, but we can't move him. So let's do that right now. So go into edit, And instead of edit sprite, we're going to go into behaviors. Now, Flowlab has these things called behavior bundles. These bundles allow you to pretty quickly make a behavior for a character in the game. And this bundle specifically states run and jump, which, as you may be able to figure out, and if we hit the little play button here, allows us to run and jump with our arrow keys, not with the WASD, because I was trying to use WASD, but it was not working. But in this case, we're actually going to want to just make the movement on our own instead of using the behavior bundles. So let's remove this guy right here. And let's try to find out the logic to actually make a movement system. So let's go to triggers here, and we want to make it so that when we hit A on our keyboard, we go to the left. So let's go drag out the keyboard, and then let's click on the little node here. You'll see here it says current key, and we want to click on this, and then we want to hit the key A on our keyboard. And we also want this to be repeating, which means when we hit it once, it should not stop, but it should continue as long as the key is down. But once we go up, it should stop moving. And we also want something to happen when we hit D on our keyboard, so let's just drag another one here and then hit D. And also repeating as well. So in this case, we want to move our character, which means we want to affect its velocity. And to affect its velocity, we can go into the Properties tab here, and then click on the velocity here, and drag it over here. And we want to affect its x coordinate, because the y coordinate is vertical, and x is horizontal, so we want to go to the x coordinate. But if we just do this, we're not going to get what we want here, right? This isn't really doing exactly what we want. Oh, and also, it's not in the right direction. We're going to the right, but A is supposed to go to the left. So before we go and connect these, we want to have other nodes in between them. We want to have nodes that contribute a number that tell the velocity which direction to move in a positive or negative x direction and for how much speed. So let's go to the logic and math section and add a number. And let's say, okay, if we are hitting the A key, we want to get this number and set it to, or set the velocity in the x direction as this number. So if we want it to be going to the left, we want to make sure it's a negative value. And let's just do -6 for now. And let's label this actually. So let's say left speed. So it just pretty much means the speed that we're going to the left. And these labels don't actually mean anything. We could really name it whatever, and it'll just have the same effect in the game. And so let's say left speed for now. And let's do the same thing pretty much for the key that's hitting down. We will say, okay, the speed is set to +6, which means we're going to this to the right 6 units at a time. So let's say right speed. Okay. And let's set the velocity here. We can use the same node here because each of these nodes are happening at different times. Okay. So let's hit the play button and see what happens. If I hit D, I go to the right, and hit A, I go to the left. That's what we want. Now, you'll notice that we don't turn around when we go to the left. We're kind of just, we're moving in the same animation, I guess. So to fix this, we want to add a little thing called flip. Now, flip pretty much says, okay, as long as this is connected to something that is being triggered, we're going to flip this, which means we're going to flip it around. And then back pretty much means we're just going to go back to its original position. So if we drag the down for A into flip as well, and the drag down for D into back, you'll notice that the character flips around and then goes back. And then it looks like he's actually moving in the right direction, which is great. Now, let's add a jump. So similar to the A and D key presses, we're going to add another key. And this is going to be W. And W is going to signify that we're going up. And this is an instance where we do not want to have this repeating, because a jump should not continuously be jumping. You're just going to want to jump once, and then you're not going to want to jump until you collide with the ground again. So let's drag this, and instead of changing the velocity of the Y, we're actually going to want to have an impulse, right? It's going to pretty much be, okay, we're going to impulsively add a force in a direction. And we want to add this force in a Y direction. And since we have figured out that this will not work out the way we want, because this number doesn't actually, we can't change this number, we're going to want to go into the logic and math and have another number here. And then we're going to say, okay, when we hit W, we're going to get this number, and this is going to be the jump height. So I'll label it as such. And then this can be 8, I guess. Yeah, I guess I'll jump pretty high. So this will be 8, and then this is a Y. And we could obviously test how it looks when we move here. So hit W. Oh, we jump. There we go. And you know what? Maybe I want to be a little higher. Maybe I don't. We can decide that once we continue the game. But another thing is, if I hit W and then W again, you'll see that I continuously jump, and I can jump infinitely. That we do not want. So let's fix that. Okay, so in this case, we pretty much want to say, okay, if I am colliding with the ground, then I want to jump. And if I'm not colliding with the ground, I do not want to jump. And there's multiple ways of doing this, but we're going to do this in a pretty generic way. So I'm going to drag in the number and say, okay, this is the number of jumps that I have. Okay. And we can start off by saying we have 1 jump. All right, perfect. And we're also going to add a filter. This is pretty much the same as like an if statement. And this says, okay, if this number is greater than 0, then okay, we can jump. But if it is not greater than 0, we do not do anything. Nothing happens. Which pretty much means and also, we want to decrease this number whenever we use our jump. So if it is greater than 0, we want to say, oh shoot, let us decrease this number. Let us say, okay, we can say decrement, just because it's going to be -1. And we're going to say, okay, shoot, let's decrease this number. So we pretty much add this by -1. And then we jump. All right, let's do this real quick. Okay, jump. Okay, look, we jumped, but we can't jump again. That's because it's not resetting the number of jumps we have when we hit the ground. So let's go back into here and go to the triggers, and then go into the collision. All right. So in this collision, we're going to say, okay, cool. If we collide with the ground 1, then we are going to want to set this number of jumps back to the initial amount of jumps that we had previously. But we don't have a number that shows the initial amount of jumps. So let's add that real quick. It's going to be initial jumps. Oh, and currently it is set at 0, but we probably want to set it at 1. So let's set that at 1 real quick. And then let's just set it right here. So you'll notice if we start, since we just collided, we set the amount of jumps that we have to 1. And if we jump right now, oh, we'll notice this gets set back to 1, which is what we want. And we can't spam W anymore. It'll only jump when we hit the ground again, which is what we want. Okay, perfect. So now we have checked off that we have a movable character player. So actually, let's strike through these right now, so that we can jot down that we've done them. So we've done this, and we have done this.